What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim back with another video, and today I'm giving you guys my final thoughts on The Evil Within 2. Now, do me a favor and help me get back to 1,000 subs. Please, please, please subscribe below. Whether you liked the video or you didn't, I'm sure you're going to eventually like something. I will wear you down just as I have all my friends and all my social relations. This one will be no different. I'm sure if you stick around, you will like what you see. With that in mind, let's talk about what the Final Thought series is. That's where I actually beat a game from my backlog and talk to you, the fan, about what I thought about it. There will be spoilers, but fear not, I will save those until a clearly marked point in the video. So if you're curious about Evil Within 2 or my opinions on it, don't worry, I'm not going to give anything away. If I had to rate this game, if I had to give it a yay or nay, I would say, eh. And I would say that only because for as fun as the game is, and as for as amazing things as the game does, it equally as frustrating. And for every good thing, it takes one step back. And this seems to be a running theme in this game, whether it be with the plot, whether it be with the controls, whether it be with anything about the game. And I'm going to dive into a little bit about that now, but I think it's best to start with what is the high-level story that I'm going to give you guys. Now, the tale is about one Sebastian Castellanos. Now, Sebastian had a rough go in Evil Within 1. Apparently, he thought, doom and despair. He was trapped in this weird Matrix thing. He broke out. He's a free bird. He's a drunk. Now, he thinks his daughter is dead. He thinks his daughter died in a fire. House fire, and he's got a lot of survivor's guilt. He's at a bar drinking, and he is approached by Julie Kidman, who is his partner from the first game. And again, not playing the first game, this is all pretty much made clear to me almost instantly. She says, "Hey, Sebastian, I got good news for you and bad news for you. The good news is your daughter is alive. The bad news is she's trapped in an evil computer simulation by the Mobius Corporation, known as STEM. And they need someone pure of mind and heart. So they kidnapped your daughter and framed her death. But you're going to help me get her out." Now, okay, I'll go with it. I thought Evil Within was going to be more survival horror in the lieu of a Resident Evil game where you have a real world problem. This is all in the Matrix, okay? Everything that you saw, all the trailers you saw, is a guy sitting in a chair with a thing plugged in the back of his head, and he is living through this weird simulation that's been corrupted by Mobius. Now, the reason why Sebastian is such an important character is because he's trying to save his daughter, okay? He needs to go save his daughter, so that's why they picked him to go do it. An ancillary yet equally important facet of the story is if enough people somehow buy into STEM, whether through directly being plugged in or somehow being pulled into the simulation, then the Mobius Corporation can somehow turn that into some sort of world domination. I guess in a sense, if everybody plugs in, somehow their sphere of influence increases, and then they can almost like force you to get into the simulation, I guess. That part wasn't really made too clear to me. The point is Mobius is bad, and your daughter needs to be saved, so they call upon you. Now, you're the B team. They already sent in a group of highly trained specialists to try to figure the problem out. You are sent in afterwards, so you are going to experience everything through them via these echoes. So you're going to see all the things that they have saw, all the things they've did, as you slowly try to track them down to find out whether they're alive or dead, and to kind of figure out the mystery. Now, it all takes place in this town called Union. It's a fictional town where Mobius lives, I guess. It's got residential streets, it's got buildings, schools, all that kind of stuff, and people live there. But it's been corrupted by this blight, I guess, and all these evilness is now spewing about, and your daughter is at the center of it all. Not saying she's an evil person, but she's kind of controlling the simulation. So you have to go in there, grab her, pull her out. That'll turn the simulation off. So obviously Mobius isn't going to let you just walk on in and do it. But they kind of let you do it anyway, which is a weird plot point. They want you to save her, but then when you're in there, secretly, they want to kill both of you guys and start over again or something. I don't know. That's not a spoiler. That's just how convoluted the story has become. But I'll get into some of the finer story points later. Needless to say, there is a logical, somewhat logical story that follows as you weave your way through, meet other NPCs, kind of work your way through this game, work your way through this environment. However, the finer details, obviously, I'll get into a little bit later. But more importantly than that, understand that whoever wrote this game, Evil Within 2, I don't think took a step back and really read it all, because it does really almost contradict itself at times. Not to say I didn't enjoy the story, not to say I wasn't invested in the final scenes with Sebastian. Whether he does or does not achieve his goal, I was invested in it emotionally, and it did impact me slightly. But I think if you spent 20 hours with a character, that's probably going to happen even if you didn't agree with every single thing that they did. This is a tale of two games. The first half of it or so is what you would consider more traditional survival horror, Resident Evil-esque, creeping around corners, slowly working your way through. You know, you might have 3 or 4 bullets in your gun if you're lucky. You're probably just going to have a knife. You're not going to have many weapons. You're going to have to really pick your battles carefully. The last half of the game is all run and gun, balls to the wall, running, shooting, blowing people away with very high-powered weapons, very high-caliber weapons, destroying everything in your path with reckless abandon. The problem is the game controls don't really lend themselves well to either style. I feel like they didn't know whether they wanted the game to be more stealth-based or more combat-based, so they kind of gave you something in between. You have a cover system, which works for the most part, and then you have an obvious third-person view where you kind of look around and you can shoot and reload and that sort of thing. Now, Sebastian is supposed to be a detective. I understand he's taken the last few years off because he's an alcoholic. He's in pain. He's mourning over his daughter's presumed death in this house fire. But boy, is he a wuss. And that's a problem, because when you're playing a game in an environment where many enemies are going to be popping out at you from around corners, and they're going to fall in on you, and you're going to be sucked into these weird dimensions like portals to hell or something like that, right? Think of like the Doomslayer, the stuff he went through. You're going to be doing stuff similar to that. And the controls don't work well, and you're having a hard time moving around, that's where the game starts to suffer. So Sebastian plays a lot like Marcus Phoenix does in the Gears of War games, minus the A dive where you can go, you remember Gears of War, you could hit A and dive in one direction or another. You can't do that. Sebastian walks very slow. He's got very slow amount of stamina. When he turns, it's very lumbering and sweeping, and it takes him a while to reload. And when he gets hit, he goes, ah, and he stops reloading. His melee attacks aren't that powerful, even after some significant upgrades. Now, the game does have an upgrade system, which is nice because you're going to need it. The problem is a lot of the upgrades are based on passive abilities. Stamina increases by 10%. Health increases by 10%. When you reload, you have a chance, or when you shoot somebody, you have a chance of potential critical damage. Now, there are some unique skills that you will learn, like assaulting or assassinating an enemy around a corner, which is nice when you're in cover. You'll learn the ability to take a bottle and break it over an enemy's head if he grabs you. That stuff is nice to have, but most of it is buried behind a long list of passive skills. So while it's fun to sneak around and craft and find weapon parts and kill enemies for the green goo to slowly level up your character, that risk-reward system of, do I want to stick my neck out there to get that piece that's going to help me upgrade my gun, knowing full well that you're probably not going to use it really until later on in the game, at which point ammo is flowing freely, so you don't really need to upgrade at that point anyway. It's kind of a weird balance, and again, that goes back to my original point that I made of this is a tale of two games, both in the literal sense of, like, not literal, it's only one game, but in the story sense that there's a story, two different parts of the story. And so of this, where you do something good and now you do something bad. Yet again, another element of sticking your neck out there. Do I really need to stick my neck out there? I'm not really sure. The survival aspect of it, the sound, the graphics design is wonderful. And one of the coolest things about this game is that since it takes place in virtual reality, the characters can do anything they want. Except you, and I will save that for the spoiler section. But I will say that each villain you face, and there are quite a slew of bosses you have to work your way through in order to get your way to the final, confrontation to potentially save your daughter or not. Each boss manipulates the world, and you end up fighting this giant incarnation of what they want to embody. So, for example, in virtual reality, I might be a 500-pound gorilla with like 50 arms. And as you're shooting me, you're really shooting me in real life, even though I look like a gorilla. And then when things morph back out, I'm just some dude standing with a bunch of bullet holes and I die. it's cool because each villain has their own take on what they consider the perfect world. Each of them wants to reshape things. And it's really interesting to see how they want to do that. And I'll save that for the spoiler section as well. Again, gameplay is imperfect, although you do get to do a lot of hunting and looting and crafting. There's that risk-reward system I talked about earlier. The problem I have, probably the biggest problem I have, and I'm not alone in this, is that at Chapter 11, there's 17 chapters. At Chapter 11, there is a game-breaking bug where you cannot proceed. Now, I had to reload a save. It didn't work. I had to revert to an older save and replay through 2 hours of content and get to this point, and very meticulously with my cell phone from people online who think they've figured out kind of like how you're supposed to get through here, have kind of figured out how to beat this area. I had to meticulously go through it. It absolutely ruined the experience. I guess if there's a credit you could say about the game, it was that I wanted to see it through to the end. But honestly, it was enough to almost make me quit. I was this close away from just Googling the ending and walking away. So Bethesda's ugly bugs rear themselves. They spring up once again to a point that you cannot even proceed in the game entirely. You are locked out of completing the game. Something to be aware of. And with that, you guys have probably noticed that there is a ticker. The spoiler count is over. The spoilers are going to begin. So if you have not yet played the game and you want to, stop watching. For everybody else, here we go. Now, one of the things I hated about this plot was that Sebastian cannot manipulate the world. He is a complete victim through this entire game. And some of the story arc is supposed to be about Sebastian rising up and breaking through and getting past those demons and realizing that he shouldn't have any guilt for his daughters dying, which I'll talk about in a second. So he goes through Stefano Valentini. He goes through Theodore Wallace. And both of these guys have the ability to totally manipulate the environment. How about his wife at the end, Myra? All these people can work their way through and change everything and be 50-foot bosses and litter the ground with fire and all these crazy things. And you get a handgun and a couple bullets. You can't do shit in this world. And yet everybody else can. You are a victim in this game, and it goes completely 100% against the plot of this game, that you're supposed to rise up and you're supposed to conquer everything around you. You are so helpless. You are such a loser in this world, and it has hit you in the face over and over again how helpless you are as you're thrown from situation to situation, and you're just trying to find your way out. And to me, that totally kills any redemption arc that this game was trying to sell to us, and for that reason, I hate the plot because of that. The survivor guilt that he has. The survivor guilt that he has is stupid as well, because the way the game frames it, you come home from work to your house on fire. You run upstairs to rescue your daughter. You can't make it to her in time, and as a result, she dies. That's the survivor guilt you have. Now, that I could understand the guilt of losing a loved one in a fire. Well, I can't understand. It hasn't happened to me personally, but I understand that. There's a difference, though, between you waking up in a house that's on fire and running out and forgetting everyone behind you and then having survivor guilt, as opposed to coming home from work and the thing is already happening and you did the best you could. Either way, you lost a loved one. That part is definitely not negotiable in terms of the pain you're going to feel. But you are not going to have what I would consider survivor's guilt if you actually tried to save her, but you couldn't because the fire had already gone on enough before you even got there. And they keep hammering this point that Sebastian has this, this pain in his body, and I just don't understand why he's so upset about this. Like, I could have done more. What could you have done? You ran into a house on fire, dude. It wasn't a good selling point for me in the story. It wasn't voiced well. It wasn't acted well. And it didn't really make me feel sympathy for Sebastian as a survivor. It definitely did as someone who lost a loved one, though. Now, Julie Kidman, who is your eyes and your ears working through Mobius, the entire game, she is also sitting at her computer in the Mobius lab with the evil administrator over her shoulder, giving you intel on all the other members that went through the simulation that you're trying to find. Along the way, you come across Yukiko Hoffman, for example, the team psychiatrist. Do you know how I know she's a team psychiatrist? Because every single time you talk to her, she says, "I'm the team psychiatrist." I don't know if it was meant to be tongue-in-cheek. I don't know if there was some other weird version of the game that I didn't get that wasn't translated well. I don't know if people who wrote this game, English wasn't their first language, but it comes off really poorly and really stupidly. And it's just like, I know. It's cringy. It's cringy dialogue with her. Some of the other team members you come across, Julian Sykes, who gives you the side mission, who is the computer hacker who wants to get out of the simulation. Well, he's great because when he gets out of the simulation, you never hear from him again. Did he make it out alive? We don't know. In theory, he should be sitting 2 feet to your left with a plug in the back of his head, sitting like this, and then all of a sudden he wakes up and walks out the door, and they let him do that, despite the fact that Julie is there in reality whispering to you on comms because she doesn't want the evil administrator to hear because she's sitting working for the man, typing away, trying to save you, but that Julian's just going to get up and walk out. There's just a lot of really stupid plot points in this game, and that's yet another one of them. When you get to the end of the game and you beat Stefano and you beat Theodore, which were amazing boss fights, okay? There's really nothing to criticize about those. Those were truly amazing boss fights. You come across your wife. Now, your wife turns into the, I don't know what we're going to call her, the wax lady, the candle wax lady, dripping with wax. And she turns into this giant beast that you have to fight and whittle your way down and blow her up and kill her. But unlike the other two bosses, unlike Stefano and Theodore, when you kill your wife, she just reverts back to being a wife. She doesn't die. All the things I was telling you before about how when you put this simulation on in your head and how, you can manipulate yourself and I could be this 500-pound gorilla in the simulation, but you're still shooting me? No, for some reason, she's immune to this. So it's like, why? Because she's a main character? Because Sebastian loves her? So she's supposed to get a chance at redemption? I guess was it to twist your knife, the emotional knife in your back and say, well, now you could be reunited as a family because you've purged me of the evil within. And now we're going to be a happy family. But wait, I have to stay and blow up the simulation. You have to go on without me. Is that what it's supposed to do? Because that didn't work either. It's a very, very, very frustrating plot point. Yet another overlooked, broken-ass plot point in this game that I did not understand. Now, the very, very end of the game, when you're fighting with Julie, okay, or when you're fighting, you fight Myra, you kill her, you're going into the house to save your daughter. It flashes back and forth between you and Julie. Julie all of a sudden decides that she is going to basically make sure that you don't die because now you've purged evil Myra, the world is safe, right? Even though Union is destroyed. The administrator's like, all right, let's go kill Sebastian. Let's go kill his daughter, Lily. Let's end this thing. Julie, who's been whispering the whole time to you on comms, trying to be real quiet and discreet, suddenly decides, you know what? I don't want to be quiet and discreet anymore. I don't want you to kill Sebastian. And then she stands up, pulls out her pistol, and proceeds to kill every Mobius member in the building, single-handedly. What big threat of this corporation is the fact that she could have done this from the beginning, given you infinite amount of time to solve your mystery, to solve this crime, to figure out how to extract Lily? How about she goes over to where Sebastian's plugged in and unplugs his ass from the simulation and just flat out kills him? How about she unplugs Theodore Wallace from the simulation and flat out kills him? And they're going to say, but Jim, sometimes they talk about this wireless chip you had. Well, you can't disable it? You can't do anything? They're just hard-coded into the simulation? I thought only your daughter was hard-coded into the simulation. Why is everyone else allowed to do whatever they want freely, and yet Sebastian has to be a victim? And Julie has to be a victim, and then she decides, I don't want to be a victim anymore, and whips out that service revolver and blows the whole game away. Everybody dies. And then Sebastian has all the time in the world because everybody's dead. It's just such a stupid plot point. It gets me so mad because you're supposed to have this idea, this retribution in Sebastian, that he's going to crawl in there and he's going to fight the evil within. Not only within himself, but within the simulation. The evil within his wife, the guilt that she has. The evil within his daughter, the remorse she has of thinking that her father abandoned her. The evil administrator and evil Mobius Corp running this evil simulation, the STEM, to trap people within the simulation. So many layers and plays on the evil within. All the victims of the Alpha team that died before you. Theodore, and Theodore who did turn crazy. Julian, Yukio, Liam, Esmeralda. All these people who worked their way in to the simulation to try to help you that die so Sebastian can carry on. Because they're running out of time. Because Sebastian has to stop this thing. It means nothing when you're going to have one person wipe out this big evil corporation. The whole idea of this evil corporation loses any sense, and when you take away that aspect of it, we're only left with Sebastian and his remorse to try to save his daughter and pull her out of the simulation. But as we find out, that doesn't really even matter so much because anybody could do what they want. Why couldn't Sebastian just dream up a world in which he grabs his daughter and pulls her out and the simulation ends? This is where the infinite plot loop just starts to spiral out of control. So I've seen so many people give this game positive reviews, but there's so many plot holes and there's so many nuanced things in this game. And if you've played the game and you're watching my video, you know what I'm saying is true. It's just so frustrating. They could have done so much better. Had Julie died with everyone else and made it where Sebastian truly was on his own, maybe that would have made his story arc a bit more redemption, a little more believable. But the fact that at the end of the game everybody walks away happily and the simulation mysteriously turns back on, one, tells you it was all for nothing, and two, it tells you that, you know, all these people died in order to do what? Had Julie immediately decided, hey, I need to pull out my gun and go kill everybody, then I got to disconnect Stefano and Theodore from the simulation, the two major villains of the game. Maybe if we can find Myra, we unplug her too, and it's over. Game's over. Is it just a misunderstanding? Is it just a miscommunication between the game writer and myself, the player, to understand that we think we're bound within the rules of this world, within the scope of this world, but that the rules could change? The reason why virtual reality and plugging yourself into the Matrix, Ready Player One's a perfect example. The reason those kind of things work is because there are a ground set of rules and regulations that are put in place that make sure players know what they can and can't do. When Stefano can suddenly freeze time and murder people and teleport around the world, when Theodore can look at you and manipulate your thoughts instantly and turn into this giant beast and put you in the gates of hell and damn you into his alternate reality, when Myra can turn into this giant monster, this candle monster at will, and burn everything in front of her and then revert back into normal Myra and be like, oh, that was cool, sorry about that, bro. And you are walking around with a pistol? Come on, man. You know better. So if Evil Within 3 comes out, I don't think I'll play it. Again, I was conflicted because there is some shredding of a story there, and you do really feel bad for Sebastian, even though he's a wuss, even though, you know, all his friends die, even though he has to leave his wife behind, even though there's layers and layers of convoluted Mobius and STEM take over the world plot. Sebastian ultimately reigns supreme. He gets his daughter, the Julie Kidman, and they all get to leave together happily ever after. The world is saved. Sebastian is saved. He's rescued everybody. He saved his soul. And that's great stuff. But all in all, just a really, really convoluted ass plot that could have been done so much better. And I hate the fact that nobody's talking about this. But you heard it here first. And I'll tell you something. If you made it all 23 minutes, good on you. And thank you guys so much for watching. Get out there and support your favorite survival horror game. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.